I am joined by truly some of the folks in the industry whom I admire, look up to, and seek advice from when I'm curious how to tell a better story or where I should look for examples of great marketing and great storytelling. The brands represented on the stage today have moved billions of dollars and gigawatts of product and loads of communities towards a sustainable, renewable future. And all of it comes back to great marketing. It really does, doesn't it? I'm joined on the stage by Tom Weirich from EDPR.
Good to be here. Thanks, Nico.
Lavi Singla from Nextracker.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
And Scarlett Chepke from Solve Energy. Extremely proud of Scarlett for having her first appearance on the stage. Lavi, is this your first?
Yes.
Lavi's as well. Tom, you're old hat.
I'm old hat.
Yep.
Yeah.
So look, since the beginning of time, the story we tell is how we move as a community, how we pass our heritage along. It's culture to culture. It's how we've populated the world. But we're increasingly in a 6-second world where people just don't pay the one thing that we want, which is attention. And if you're a marketer, you often are thinking, how do I communicate that message? A lot of marketers fall into focusing on features versus feelings. And not a lot of storytelling, if you're familiar with how stories are told, really dig into features. They tap into emotions. We're going to talk a little bit about how, as a corporate marketing strategy, you can tap into storytelling today. And I want to start at the beginning, which is understanding or knowing your audience, right? You've built brand pillars. You've tried to come up with your key message platform. How do you figure out who the audience is? That's the key crux. So, Lavi, I'd love to get a perspective from you on what does it look like to build out the audience that you're going to develop your marketing campaigns around, and maybe how often is that evolving and changing for you?
Absolutely. So target markets are at the core of what we do, and they're the foundation over what we are building our marketing strategies. And personifying these target groups is one of the key things that we do in my experience at Nextracker. Personifying and understanding what do these different target groups mean for our business. But the most important thing on top of it is what you just mentioned is the evolution. It's amazing how our target groups are evolving and ever changing. So ask this question to yourself. Are you re-looking and re-evaluating your target groups every 6 months? Because that's how fast
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months. That's how fast people are changing. People are
I feel like
evolving.
it takes 6 months just to create a persona.
Yeah.
Yes. So by the time you're done,
You had a
restart.
full-time staff doing personas. It's just like, Kristen's like, this is your persona person.
Yes. And just to add to that, the final thing I would add is, one is your customers, right? You're always creating target groups based on that. But there's one component of your target groups, which is communities.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the most challenging part of influencers. Who are the people influencing your business? Really understanding what those influencers are and evolving with those influencers, because your business is changing. So is your persona, and so are your influencers.
Anything to add,
Yeah,
Tom?
and the communities, I say, rightly so, are becoming smarter and smarter. No longer can you as a developer, we're a top 5 developer in the country. No longer can we go into a community and spout off bullets of, hey, this is helping your economy. This is doing, X, Y, and Z. They're looking for an emotional connection to it, right?
Yeah.
So I think with us, just building off and riffing off what you just said, it is about showing trying to find those stories in those communities, doing that through town halls, doing that through community meetings, and really getting to know community leaders and really teasing out those stories that I would say spark emotion in the community and spark a passion and a pride in the renewables projects we're building. Because at the end of the day, if you don't get communities on your side, you've already lost the project, even before day one, before you drive any steel into the ground. So driving that emotion, finding those stories in those communities and amplifying those stories really is what's important for us. Yeah.
And I would add on to that. We're an APC contractor, so we're out in the small rural communities building projects. Sometimes it's about creating the stories. We have a community relations group that goes out and mobilizes our project teams to go out and get involved in the community, do volunteering work, and work in the local schools with STEAM education, and then figuring out how to tell that story, share it with the community to let them know what the impact of these solar projects in their community is.
But I think what's really important, Nico, is that all three of us here in our different roles as APC, as a developer, as a technology provider, right? It shows you that you need a whole team to work together on this.
Yeah.
This can't just be the developer working on this. It has to be everybody in the supply chain
Absolutely.
working together in the communities. But at the end of the day, we all benefit from
Yes.
greater education on renewables in the community level.
Yeah.
You touched on something, Tom, that I think is really key to defining the key elements of good story. And you said make it personal. You know, as we build brand pillars and we go through all these exercises on personas and key message platform, we can get buried in the lingo and the formality, which is important. And we can get lost in capturing data and forget that at the end of the day, there are key elements of a good story. You mentioned make it personal. I wonder, do you guys have other examples of sort of the cornerstones for you of what it means to develop a good story?
Well, I think it is that outreach. It is a partnership. You know, for us, our mentality is, listen, we're, as a developer, going to be in this area for 30, 40, 50 years with our projects, right? And as a result, you have to be a good neighbor, and you have to see what really at the heart of, what's at the beating heart of the community, right? What really drives the community in their aspirations? Where do they want to go as a community? And a lot of it is workforce development training, right? And having that community see their future in your project, right? You know, one of the things, you know, Sandhya Ganapathy, our CEO, spoke yesterday and opened up the conference, and she's mentioned a story where one landowner went to her and said, listen, if I didn't have the one project on my property, I wouldn't be able to send my kids to college.
Wow.
And I got to send all three of my kids to college. And I think stories like that, also stories of folks in the coal industry who said, hey, you all came in, I was scared, you know, we thought our livelihoods would be taken away, but actually you gave us a new lease on life. And a new lease on a technology and an industry that can give us passion and energy back into what we're trying to do. So again, it is trying to find those stories and really connecting with the community at the ground level. Yeah.
And it really does, it evolves, it changes depending on what you bring to market. You've talked about project development. We have two other providers that are EPC and product, right? Manufacturing. I think that there are few in the industry, if any, that do as good a job on sharing the value of local manufacturing as Nextracker. You've opened, 15, 20 factories in the last couple of years, a lot of them here locally. I'd love to hear from the two of you the differentiation that you see in what are the elements of a good story from the perspective of an EPC versus a manufacturer.
Absolutely. I love that story, Tom. That makes so much sense, and it resonates so much to what Nextracker is doing and trying to achieve. It's heartwarming when we go to these small towns and these manufacturing units are open, and we talk to the workers that are working there and how a single job impacts their whole life, including what school their children go to, what food they're able to afford for themselves. And after taking all of that, the awareness and the passion those people have for solar or renewable is absolutely mind-blowing. We're just amazed at these stories. There's this woman we met in Pittsburgh. She's a worker at one of the manufacturing units that we have. She's a mom. She's a single mom. And she's so passionate about what she does. And she's so proud that she's related to the renewable industry.
Yeah.
And her son is so proud of his mom for doing that.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that stands out to me, and I think, you know, we've talked about Scarlett for Solve is, you're bringing up elements of story that tie back to work that's been done. I think a lot of folks take, they don't get to see behind the scenes the incredible work that goes into capturing the essence of what this project or this manufacturing facility are doing in the community. Scarlett, how with you have so many employees at Solve, how as the marketing lead, how do you think about actually capturing those stories? Because that sometimes is the bottleneck.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. We're all over the country. We are very fortunate at Solve Energy to have a phenomenal photographer who can travel across the country and go to our job sites and build relationships on site. He was just telling me before I came up here that he goes to job sites and they are excited to see that he's there, that he's going to take pictures of their project that they take such pride in, and that we're going to share the story of what they're building in that community.
Yeah.
We have work in over 30 states at this point. So, there's a lot of stories to tell. So really our employees feel honored when they get highlighted. So.
And do you have in-house creative as well? I mean, it's amazing to see that you have in-house media capturing the content that you can deploy at will. You don't have to go find someone in this or that town. Do you also have in-house creative?
We have in-house creative. Yeah, we have some graphic designers. But like you said, the challenging point, the bottleneck is often finding those stories.
Yeah.
And it's about finding allies on different project teams across our business. And then especially even on our safety team, finding those people that travel to all of the different projects, that know people in all regions of the country. And, just keeping in touch. It's all about building relationships.
Yeah. And we're not trying to make more work for them either. Have you guys come up with novel ways to capture the content? I mean, you're sending out, that is a novel way. You hire a photographer full time, but are there other ways that you've been able to co-opt folks in the field and encourage them to send content in?
Well, I would say tons of videography, right? And we're in a world where you have 60 to 30 seconds to put together a video, right? To connote a story, to get a point across the screen. Also, there's a lot of nonprofits and other groups, Rise. There's also Grid Alternatives. There's CLI. There's so many groups out there also that are looking to tie in this messaging, right? To make their own nonprofit missions alive. And that kind of partnership also helps to pull together those stories and make them relevant, right? So I think it's these partnerships, and also just partnerships between partners on a project, right? We've done lots of work with Beta Engineering and other vendors of ours on those stories in Louisiana coming out of hurricanes. This is how renewables has really helped the community, right? So I think finding those stories and finding those partnerships to make those stories alive is just as important. Yeah.
Yeah. To add to the component of finding stories, as a global company, we've done road trips across countries like Australia, Brazil, traveled from one city to another for over a couple of months. Hiring a photographer is a really small component of story finding.
Yes.
It's about finding those people in every town and finding how they are getting impacted with solar in their town.
Right.
We have so many tremendous stories in these countries. There's an 84-year-old farmer who had lost everything, but then he gave away his land to lease out for a solar farm, and now he's living comfortably. He's so happy. Yeah. We have a woman who started supplying food to a solar farm in Brazil and eventually ended up opening a restaurant.
Wow.
It's beautiful. So it just takes time to connect with your local construction managers, talking to them, and then finding those few people and then visiting them and talking to them.
I'm curious, you must have, just from this show alone, we're going to generate about 4 terabytes of data from the podcast stage, which candidly probably pales in comparison to the quantity of content that is fed into the machine that's creating these stories. Tom, how do you integrate all of the stories? Because you're lucky in that you've got folks that are really bought in on your development team. They send you content all the time. It's akin in many ways to the Resi folks that have their installers sending pictures, right? Like you guys have a ton. How do you integrate it into campaigns, and how do you filter it?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. We filter it through themes, right? There's different themes like workforce development, right? Community relations, community build out, right? Rural communities versus urban, right? We have a distributed generation business, right? Yeah. So we have different stakeholders, urban stakeholders versus rural, right? So those are 2 different subsections. But it goes back to, I think, what everyone's spoken about before. You have to go back to the customer. Yeah. What does the customer need? And what do their stakeholders need? And it's both internal and external stakeholders. These stories, as much as we love getting out there in the world with these stories, they also empower our own employees, right? This is why we get up in the morning to do our work. Yep. And especially if you're attracting talent for talent acquisition reasons, people today, especially Gen Y, Z, all the gens, right, are looking for a job where they're creating impact. Yeah. And I would say in many ways, these stories also help to attract the talent we need to take us to the next level, right? But yeah, it's all by themes. To answer your question, we divide it up by themes. We then try to figure out, okay, how do we apply those themes to the stakeholder groups we're trying to communicate to? And then what mediums are the best mediums? Yeah. Is it social media? Is it YouTube, right? More and more people are leaving Twitter. Yeah. LinkedIn.
You mean X.
X, exactly. even LinkedIn, right? There's a big debate about what's appropriate on LinkedIn anymore because
Right.
it's become almost like a Facebook for those of us that are 40 plus, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So again,
Nico
it is
posting about shoes and swag. I mean,
about
just get
people taking
serious.
their kids to school, taking their kids back to school. You know, this year I've seen so many family pics, right?
Yeah.
I think coming out of COVID's really changed the concept of how we can really stretch LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
it's all about balance of, you know, a well-rounded, balanced person, right?
Well, that
Yeah.
brings up a question I have, and I think it'll tie into the next piece, which is part of what we do as marketers is we have to be sleuths, right? We have to look for the stories that we don't get from our team, that we can pick up from local media, that we can pick up from social media. So I want us to think about, there's kind of a bifurcation of the audience, and I want to start with how you maybe utilize stealthy tactics to find stories that your own team is pushing onto. So maybe they didn't even check in and say, I posted this on social media. Do you have a social media policy that helps you capture stories? Do you filter and decide who posts what? I'm curious about that, and I'd love for you to expound on that, Scarlett, specifically around this bifurcation of the audience, because we've talked a lot about storytelling as it pertains to our customers and who we want to attract to the company as people who buy our services or products. But one of the key things that we have to attract in this industry is talent, right? Which means we've got a bifurcated audience as marketers. We have to serve our internal customers and our external customers. So first, the filter of social media, and then how do you think more broadly about the internal versus external audience?
Social media wise, I mean, we just want to kind of set an example from the top down. So creating content that people are excited to share. And I mean, with all of us, people are excited to share things that feature themselves, that talk about the work that they're doing. Right. So, you know, we always just want to celebrate the victories that we have at Solve Energy and the things that people can see and not see.
Yeah.
And sometimes that does mean talking about internal campaigns and initiatives externally, because we want people that are potential job seekers to know that we're always looking out for our people. We're always looking out to make people more engaged internally there. You know, what was the next question?
Yeah, I think that, I think, well, that touches on, I'm wondering like how you filter if you're encouraging the team about things they could post, or if you're sort of filtering and searching LinkedIn to find things to highlight and push out.
Yeah, so we definitely sometimes even send out suggested things that people could share. That's a super easy way to do it. And another thing that we do internally is myself and my team, we look through for employees who are doing a great job sharing our news and sharing their own successes and celebrating others on social media. And we actually just send those posts out to other people, encourage our own people to go amplify those, like those, share them. And that's been really successful.
Lavi, how do you think about internal versus external customers, so to speak? Internal, obviously, is your teammates and how you have to engage them. External is something that we all have thought, we think predominantly about.
It's actually very similar. From a marketer standpoint, they are your customers.
Yeah.
And they are constantly working. They're constantly engaging, and there's so much noise everywhere. Yeah. It's filtering out that noise for them and then feeding them content that's really valuable to them, equally valuable to both these customers that you just mentioned. We do also promote internal communications to go outside.
Yeah.
If they're not sharing anything that's IP or confidential. And anything that we see externally, we share it with our internal customers. Hey, we came across this something we loved. We would love for you to go and talk about it. And to answer your second part of the question, how do you go to social media? Well, there's a constant research that our entire team does, going through different social media channels, what's being talked about, how does it connect to our brand pillars? And if there are stories that we're working on that are connected to our brand pillars and other people are talking about it, that's your best moment.
Yeah.
Grab it before it goes away.
Are there any particular tools that you guys have found that help make that easier?
Well, there are multiple. We've used the social media tool that you use to post that also helps you filter out. We do have some internal tools for organizing our content that we use.
Can you guys, I'd love to hear like specifics around how you've built the tools around capturing and syndicating the content. Are you using things like Hootsuite or other tools?
Yeah, definitely Hootsuite, Sprinkler.
Sprinkler.
There's a new tagging system that we just that we're implementing right now on all of our photographs, right? So to your points, we take thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of photographs, right? And then good luck sorting through all of those, right? For different situations, right? So we have a new tagging system where we actually tag, we put filters and tags on all of our photography. So that way, if I'm searching, okay, I want to see some, a technician with a helmet and safety glasses on, right? Following OSHA rules, boom, we can punch that out. So we're using those kinds of tools to help us just catalog all the information, because that's half the battle is cataloging it. And then using the technology to our advantage, right? To push out as much marketing as we can.
Sprinkler, I love it. Social listening, for those that aren't aware. I'd not heard of Sprinkler. Tom dropping some, this is the kind of stuff we got to share, right? We're on the vanguard. We have to help others catch up. So I hope that actually we'll get some folks coming up to us later and saying, hey, have you thought about this? Have you done that? In that light, I would like to know, generally speaking, as with personas, marketing tactics, they start to fizzle and fade. So I'm curious, going into Q4 and thinking about the next year, what is working for you and kind of what stopped working?
I think what works is the minute you personalize it and make it about the employee, not about the technology, right? Mm-hmm. Technology is cold no matter what the technology is. But if once you ascribe it to a person and their achievements, like you said, I liked very much, Scarlett, what you said about personal milestones and celebrations of employees' work. I just had a technician on the ground at one of our farms come to me, and he's been on Instagram as an Instagram sensation doing safety catches and saying, hey, I want to partner with you on how do we educate people in the industry on safety catches, no matter what company they're part of. And I think that's kind of where you apply the storytelling to industry leadership, right? That helps everybody. And you make it about that person, this one technician who grew up in this community, who's now working for us on one of our wind farms and sees this as a future, right? And he wants to educate others and help others. Right. That's what I think attracts people and takes it out of the noise of all the other news out there. But that's just an example. But that's where we're seeing, I think, success is applying it to people, applying it to our employees. Yeah.
Lavi, what's working, what's not?
Absolutely. Agree with everything that Tom said, but I'm going to add a little spin to it from a product and technology standpoint. Yes, focus on features, focus on product specifications is really important, but where's the value?
Yeah.
Are you really breaking down the value that a customer is getting from your technology?
Right.
If you're not, you failed.
Yeah.
And it's very elementary, quality over quantity.
Yeah.
The moment you start chasing quantity, you'll start seeing your quality go down and down.
That's right.
And that's why you need to do quality control and bring up your quality levels.
Yeah. So Seth Godin, ever the sage for short quips, says, really when you're doing marketing, you got to look at each piece and ask yourself the question, so what?
Yeah.
So what? And then distill it down to the so what. Scarlett, what's working? What's not? What have you stopped doing?
We, like it or not, do not put the focus on solar. We put the focus on our people. Just with the communities that we're going into, people know what they know about solar or they're against it. There is value in educating people on what is true and what is not. But from my experience, the best way to do that is through the story of somebody that they know and what a job on a solar farm means to them and what it means to their family and how a school has benefited by a big project being developed in their area. And all of those, we have a saying that good energy has a ripple effect. So, what is that ripple effect that the solar project itself starts?
Yeah. Well, as we wrap, I would be remiss if I didn't ask a question that I know is on most marketers' minds. And I'll just say it this way. Isn't AI wonderful? Isn't it just the perfect addition to our marketing stack? Tom, don't you agree?
No. I'm very old school. For those of you in the audience, I'm 43. I hate and I detest AI right now. Aside from operations and engineering and design and layout, okay, there might be some kudos there for AI. But from a marketing point of view, I had the other day a colleague from our peoples and operations team, or people and culture team, come up to me doing a description, and she's like, "Listen, look, I just popped this into chat GPS, and this is what popped out." And I read it, and I'm like, oh gosh, this needs to be filtered a lot. Like, what's the audience you're going towards, right? How are you addressing this? It talked about being green, and it was like almost this poetic lullaby about being green and going green. And I was just like, I'm like, how did you pull this together? You know? And she said, Chat GPS with a smile. And I'm like, please let the marketers do the marketing. And maybe later on when Chat GPS, has all the information it needs to still gather to be a little more eloquent, maybe. But I'm a very big, again, operations, design, engineering, obviously in other divisions, I can see value. But right now in marketing, please don't approach me with AI. No.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't. Nothing to Debbie Downer. That's the first answer.
I'm hoping we can be a little contentious here.
Yeah.
Lavi, I would love to hear your perspective on it.
I agree and disagree.
Very diplomatic.
With
yes.
Switzerland over here.
In my opinion and experience, it could be talked about.
Yeah.
It really depends on what is it that you're trying to achieve. Marketing operations, there is a lot you could do and make AI your best friend.
That's right. Templates.
To give you an example, think about your next month's calendar, and there is a new content pillar that you're working towards, and you really don't know if people are talking about it or not. Use an AI tool to research what people have been posting, what people have been saying.
Yeah.
Get data, because data is so important even in marketing. Collect all of that, gather all of that in one place.
Yeah.
And then for creative writing, you don't have to go to AI.
That's right.
Do it yourself. You have, I'm sure, very smart people in your team to utilize their skills.
Yeah.
Identify the parts where you're able to utilize it to your advantage, and you would actually have a lot of value.
Yeah. I would absolutely agree there. And what I hear you saying is creative from a copy perspective can get a lot more attention and time if you leverage AI to help surface the research that you would otherwise spend that time mulling away at.
Yeah. That's one way of definitely
like ad copy.
it.
I think I can see AI being valuable for initial ad copy riffing,
ideation.
right?
Yeah.
And ideation, stuff like that, and going, okay, this might take us in direction A versus direction B in terms of campaign messaging.
Scarlett,
Okay, I'll give you that.
Are you old
I'll give you
school
that.
like Tom?
I was Team Tom, but I think that I might have switched sides. And it definitely sounds like I just need to expand my AI horizon a little bit.
I love this.
Yeah.
My next email to you will be generated by AI. We'll see how you like that. Yeah, we'll see.
All right,
we'll see.
Well,
Yeah.
for what it's worth, in the last 3 months, we have used all of the AI that we can get our hands on, and I am incredibly impressed and intimidated as a marketer by what AI means for us as an industry, right? I don't think that AI will replace us. I do think that it will replace those of us who don't learn to integrate it into our processes. Prompt engineering is already becoming a degree. AI prompt engineering. I mean, if that is something that we have to pay attention to as marketers, and the great thing, as Lavi really pointed out, is the ability to use a tool to save you time in the research phase. Templates. What is it? What is this or that happening in the marketplace? Actually, try asking ChatGPT or Bard, how do I tell a story? What are the core elements of a story? What are the best examples of a 6-second story? What are the best? You could ask all kinds of questions, right? It is infinite, but prompting is an art. I've invested heavily in our operations team trying to figure out that art just to keep us lean. Because that's the other thing, right? We talk about there being a talent shortage, and you can leverage these tools to give your existing team more leverage, more time.
Well, and Nico, and to your point, I think in storytelling, it's all about asking the right question.
Yes. Oh, that's a great way to tie it off, Tom. Thank you very much.
There we go. Non-AI created, not Chat GPS created.